This is Jesus, James, and Mark. And I'm Mark.
And I'm James.
I bet you thought we were done with this whole thing, and we had given up.
No chance.
We were done. But now we're here, back. Episode 48.
We did take a little hiatus.
Slight hiatus.
Yeah.
It happens sometimes. People get busy, and that's what happened to us. You had a vacation.
I had a little family vacation. I had to be part of the family. It's not a family if I'm not there, so.
That's true. I mean, that couldn't have been, right? So,
no.
And you went to the mountains, which
went to Western North Carolina.
I love it. I love it there.
It was a great time. We saw a lot of really cool stuff.
Yeah.
Those people are still recovering, of course, in some of those areas. So, remember them. But it was a really good time.
And for us here, if you're new to Jesus, James, and Mark, hello, everybody. We're glad to have you aboard. We are two ordinary men who are Christians. Or as I think the phrase everybody says, two men who I identify as Christians.
Yeah.
As we're on this journey. But we are exploring the Bible, and we are inviting people to listen. So you can find us at a lot in let's see, Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeart. I've forgotten all these. iHeart Podcast, as well as Amazon Music. You can find us on YouTube, and you can find Jesus, James, and Mark on YouTube and on Facebook. And subscribe, share the experience. We would absolutely love to hear from you. Send us an email as well at jesusjamesmark@gmail.com.
Good or bad, we want to hear it all.
Yes, and absolutely.
We try to live by the understanding of 1 Corinthians 2, chapter 2. We know nothing but Christ and Him crucified.
And the more you listen to that, the more you're going to say, yep, that's pretty much all you know.
Yeah.
And that's good. Listen, that's really all you need to know.
We're just trying to encourage.
You're right.
If we say something that sounds off, maybe it will make you go read.
We do.
And try to figure it out for yourself.
This is, what's been, and so first off, we've also had high school football, which we both are part of our area high school, which is West Craven High School, and we both went to school there, and so that's been a little bit of the hiatus too, getting back into that routine, and so we're glad to be back doing it, and I found it interesting that where we left off, so we've been doing the book of Genesis, and where we are is a very popular story. I think that's you don't even have to be a Bible nut like we are, or Bible nerd or whatever to know this story, or have heard this story of Abraham and Isaac, and where Abraham is going to be asked by God to sacrifice his child, and of course, spoiler alert, he ends up not having to sacrifice the child, and so. But this is to me an interesting story, because the first thing that people ask is, or the first thing people say is, especially parents, could I do this? And it's no way. And then there's the questions of why would God ask someone to do that? And it's not as surface level as you might think.
Right.
I think, as I said, and we're going to kind of, and this is why we encourage people to read the Bible and to walk on this journey, is because it's not just the 2 inches of surface, as I said, on the story of just, it's a parent who had a kid that he wanted, right? And now it's like, well, sacrifice the kid. And again, you've got to dig way deeper than that to figure out why. Yeah. And as I said, so much gets revealed in this story, and there's some interesting parallels to this story. Again, not perfect. It's hard to make I searched really hard to see if I could find more, but there's only just a couple of things that kind of make you go, wow, this is kind of interesting.
And we have said during Genesis that we are going to try to show Christ anytime we feel like He shows up in this book.
Yes, absolutely.
And this is definitely one of those times.
I absolutely, yeah. So so that's where we're picking up. But as you and I were talking about, it's been a few weeks since we've been at it, and in fact, the last time we did one of these podcasts, we do a video component along with
Yes.
the podcast that we give to on Spotify and Apple. So if that's the one, if you go to YouTube, you can see the chiseled, handsome ruggedness of Jesus James Mark. But in all seriousness, we had some issues, so we actually got new equipment. It's a good thing. However, the learning curve and
Right.
how
Yeah.
we're adapting old equipment with new equipment, so we had no video, and so it's been 4 weeks since we've had a video podcast. It's been 3 weeks since we've actually sat
Yeah.
down and done it. So I just thought it was interesting. Did you take a minute in your thought process, as I did, of the interesting part of how, for you and I on this journey with this podcast,
Mhm.
that this is the story where we stopped? Because I spent some time thinking about it, because what to dig deeper into this, of what's happening with Abraham, and I'm gonna read we're gonna read the Bible, but I think what is happening here is, and I'm gonna circle back around this, because I've got something from Job that I'm gonna share,
Okay.
that ultimately is what are you willing to when we say sacrifice, and this is a sacrifice like you cannot possibly imagine. And so as astounding as this has been asked of Abraham to do, and again for him to be obedient in
Mhm.
that, there's only one. There's one other sacrifice, in the biblical sense, that's obviously way bigger,
Yes.
and that's what Jesus did for all of us,
Right.
and what God did for all of us. Um, Nowadays, I think the word we use for sacrifice is really, it's more about, and again, it's, as I said, I'm not saying that there aren't people that have real sacrifice, but I think a large portion of what we deem as sacrifice is sacrifice that we use, or willing to give up. We're willing to make this sacrifice for a gain on the other end.
Right.
It's sort of about, because I'm going to talk about at some point, with this Job thing that I'll circle back to later, is being obedient when you have the promise, when you're waiting for the promise, is one thing, because it's like, hey, I need deliverance, or I need this blessing to
Mhm.
happen, or God has made this promise, and until this, so you can stay. But how obedient is it in this moment where you're asked, okay, well, now, again, I'm not waiting for something. Now I'm literally asked to give up without knowing that there's anything in return, just because God has asked me to do it.
Yep.
And so, and that is the real question to ask. It's not, God didn't say, hey, sacrifice your kid and blank, blank, blank will happen. He was just asked, so, hey, I want you to take and so we're going to get to the reading part of
And
it. But as I
on
said,
top of that, there was even, he has been told that through Isaac these things will be done.
right.
And here he is asked to put him to death, and he's willfully being obedient to that request.
Yeah. I mean, it is such a deeper
Yeah.
thing and the complexity of that whole, and we're gonna get into it. But I just, as I said, that's kind of, as I was thinking about it, because look, you and I have families. I
Oh
have
yeah.
children, and then that's the one, as I said, in this, it's a direct
Oh yeah.
relation to the story. It's like, your kids. I mean, what you wouldn't give, what you wouldn't do for them, right? But there's how much would you give up, and it is, would you give up everything? And I'm ultimately going to say, you're going to end up giving it up anyway.
Yeah.
But
None of this really
right,
matters.
right. But we'll get to that in a minute. But as I said, it's, for me personally, and it wasn't this. Let me just try to paint this as this moment for
Yeah.
me. It was just very interesting to take a moment and say, we sat on this story where we are on the Bible. So it's allowed me to sort of marinate in this story
Yeah.
for almost a month. And it's just what I've really come from it is how much are you willing to give? As I said, that God gave the ultimate, I will give my son so that you cannot
Yeah.
perish but have everlasting life, even though you don't deserve it and there's nothing you can do to achieve it. And even your greatest righteousness is nothing but filthy rags.
Right.
That be, as I said, it's, what are you willing to sacrifice in order to do it? And I said,
And what
I
do you
think a lot
what
of
do you
Christians,
consider sacrifice?
and I'm not throwing myself into some sort of sanctimonious,
Oh yeah.
because I'm guilty of this too, but it's, it's, as I said, a lot of people go, nope, I'm not giving up my house. I'm not giving up my job. I'm not giving up my, for God, or because, as I said, and I'm not saying that anybody's asked to do that on
Well,
necessarily a regular basis,
you've
but
got the rich man who
yes.
he was so close to righteousness and wouldn't give up his wealth.
So, all right, let's just go ahead and, I guess the best thing to do is to just get into the reading, and then we can expound upon it. So, we are reading from Genesis chapter 22 in the, wow, my Bible has switched to the NIV here.
Uh-oh.
So let's switch over to that New King James Version. I think I was getting some. I do like to read,
Yeah.
and I said I'll read a little bit of ESV as well and NIV. There are some that I won't, and it's not because, and again, but this is
Yeah.
not that discussion. So we're reading from the New King James Version, Genesis 22. Now it came to pass after these things that God tested Abraham and said to him, Abraham, and he said, Here I am, which is a great thing to ask, right? Or a great thing to answer, I should say.
Yes.
As opposed to Adam hiding.
Right.
Sorry. Then God said, Now, take now your son, your only son, Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains of which I shall tell you. So Abraham rose early in the morning and saddled his donkey, took two of his young men with him, and Isaac his son, and he split the wood for the burnt offering, and arose and went to the place of which God had told him. Then on the third day, Abraham lifted his eyes and saw the place afar off. And Abraham said to his young men, Stay here with the donkey. The lad and I will go yonder and worship. So we will come back to you. So Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it on Isaac, his son, and he took the fire in his hand and a knife, and the two of them went together. But Isaac spoke to Abraham his father and said, My father. And he said, Here I am, my son. Then he said, Look, the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering? And Abraham said, My son, God will provide for himself the lamb for a burnt offering. So the two of them went together. Then they came to the place of which God had told him, and Abraham built an altar there and placed the wood in order, and he bound Isaac his son and laid him on the altar upon the wood. And Abraham stretched out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. But the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. And so he said, Here I am. And he said, Do not lay your hand on the boy, or do anything to him. For now I know that you fear God, since you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. Then Abraham lifted his eyes and looked, and there behind him was a ram caught in a thicket by its horns. So Abraham went and took the ram and offered it up for a burnt offering instead of his son. And Abraham called the name of the place, The Lord Will Provide. As it is said to this day, In the mount of the Lord it shall be provided. Then the angel of the Lord called to Abraham a second time out of heaven and said, By myself I have sworn, says the Lord, because you have done this thing and have not withheld your son, your only son. Blessing, I will bless you, and multiplying, I will multiply your descendants as the stars of the heaven and as the sand which is on the seashore. And your descendants shall possess the gate of their enemies. in your seed, all the nations of the earth shall be blessed because you have obeyed my voice. So Abraham returned to his young men, and they rose and went together to Beersheba, and Abraham dwelt in Beersheba. All right, so we'll stop right there because that's the whole story.
That is the story.
And so where that stops is at 22:20. So let's there's a lot. And so first off, because you hit on this big too, I want to go back to at the beginning of the story. And again, I made that one commentary about God said Abraham, and he said, "Here I am," and he said, "Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering is one of the mountains which I should tell you." But the beginning of that where it says, "Take now your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love." So to start there, I just want to say that because you hit on this. This is not just his son. It is the promise.
It is.
That was given to him
because he has another son.
He has, yes.
This is not his only son.
This is not his only son. And then, and I think I was telling you probably in a previous podcast, when you study, Sarah actually passes away and Abraham remarries and historically has more children. But the only son of the promise is Isaac. And so,
and he's called the only son in verse 2, verse 12, and verse 16. Yes. He's referenced as the only son 3 times in that story.
And and again, he's saying, and the next part of this is, that whom you love. God recognized, so not only is Isaac his only son and the promise, but he recognized Abraham loved this boy.
Yeah.
I mean, loved this boy. And I know people go, well, I love all my kids. And look, I'm not saying he loved his kid. I'm just saying God sees you loving someone. I think that is amazing. And so he knew what kind of sacrifice this was. We're going to go ahead and kick this into high gear right now, because if you do a study of Mount Moriah, which by the way, this wasn't where God goes to Abraham and says, "Hey, I want you to do this thing." And then they went and walked down the road. This was quite a journey. They go to this Mount Moriah, which Beersheba and all this, where they're going where Jerusalem is going to end up being.
Yep.
And Mount Moriah, when you do your deep dive into this, is Golgotha.
Right.
And if you're like, wait a minute, I've heard that somewhere before.
Yeah.
Well, if you have, it sounds very much like, oh, is that where Calvary is? Yes, that is exactly where that is.
And so Mount Moriah is a big mount. I mean, there's a lot of area there. And I did some studying on that. And there are some people who aren't sure if this sacrifice was supposed to take place at there could be a peak somewhere on Mount Moriah. But it's not specified in this story, because he says, go to Mount Moriah and then to a mount that I will tell you.
Right. So we don't have the exact.
Yeah, we don't have, but it could have been.
But the fact, I mean,
we're on
as
the
I
same.
Said, we're not here to proclaim. But look, when it's that close, it's hard not to at least tell you. That in the same place where God sent his only son to be sacrificed.
Yeah.
And by the way, God, the only son whom he loved, God loved his son. He loved Jesus. The parallels between these two things are hard to ignore. As I said, even if we go to Mount Moriah and there's peaks of all these, as I've seen, I went to the deep dive too. They go, well, maybe it was here, maybe it was there. I'm just telling you, the bizarreness of it all being in the same area cannot be. And we're talking about thousands of years difference.
Yes.
Or what? I mean, I don't have the exact number, but listen, it was
a long span of time between this story and the crucifixion of Christ.
And it's just, again, the fact that they made this journey, and again, the language of take your son,
your only
son,
and
whom
again,
you love,
we
and
have to remember
sacrifice him.
we're all God's children, right?
Yes.
And then still he says, my only begotten son. So
Yes.
even though God has many children, we're all God's children, this sacrifice was still his only son.
Yeah. So again, I know that to me it really is an amazing part of this, and I can't grasp my mind around exactly what it, other than the faith of Abraham and just the fact that, because I'm okay, so I'm going to go to this first. So Hebrews 11:17.
Oh yeah, that's what I've got pulled up.
Do you have that pulled up too? Do you want to read it?
Sure, I'll read it.
Okay, so read that part, because here's what I'm saying about Abraham, and because we talk about him being his faith.
Yes.
So when he's told to do this, there's like, it's at least written. There's no hesitation. There's no I'm questioning God, right? He's like, I'm gonna boom boom boom, and I'm gonna step into this, and he just kind of believed, like, hey, if God told me to do this, it's fine, and I'm gonna trust in spite of what God told him to do. And a burnt offering. So when you study this, and by the way, I don't. At that time, child sacrifice was as commonplace as anything you can imagine. There were so many gods worshipped, and it was just common to think that you sacrificing your kid was the way to achieve this blessing. And so to be asked to be done this, or for this was not. So for everybody that is, I know this is hard to grasp.
Oh yeah.
But just understand, in this time and in this culture, and I know it's like, I'm not normalizing this. I'm just telling you, at that time, it was not uncommon for anybody, and nobody would have blinked an eye if you'd have went and sacrificed your kid. There wasn't child protective services that were going to come get Abraham from doing this. And so again, it's common, but it's not as if he was not participating in it.
No.
And he believed Isaac was this promise that God. Remember, Isaac is laughter. Isaac is rejoicing. It's joy. It's pure laughter. It's not. It is, and it was something that God promised him, and he carried that promise for 25 years before it was delivered.
And there's a passage in this story that stuck out more to me after I referenced this Hebrew scripture, and it was the one where he tells his young men, "Stay here with the donkeys," and the young men, he told, "Stay here. The lad and I will go yonder and worship, and we will come back." He said, "We
will come back."
This in Hebrews, this chapter 11, kind of references how much faith he had in the idea that I'm going up here to sacrifice my son, but I have no doubt that we will come back.
Yes, not I'll be back. We will be back. So
So Hebrews 11:17, by faith Abraham, when he was tested, offered up Isaac, and he who had received the promise offered up his only begotten son, of whom it is said, in Isaac your seed shall be called, concluding that God was able to raise him up even from the dead, from which he also received him in a figurative sense. So Abraham had no doubt whatever was going to happen on that hill, he was coming back with Isaac.
Yes.
And that was the obedience of his faith in God.
And a lot of people, I saw this somewhere, kind of call this blind faith. Like, wow, like you can have that sort of, because it feels reckless. Like, because he was going to walk up there and go, either God's going to provide the lamb, or that he's going to bring him back to life if I have to kill him.
Which is a resurrection idea, right? There's like, if this has to go down the way this is going down, he's coming back with me, because he is the promise. He's the covenant. And
so again, trying to wrap your mind around it is absolutely, because parallel that to the Jesus thing about all of that, about that would God provide a lamb? I mean, and in this regard, so again, the Abraham Isaac story is very straightforward. They went up. Mm-hmm. There was a lamb provided.
A ram.
Excuse me. And so, boom.
The Ram of God.
But in Jesus, it was both. God did provide the lamb, and still that lamb had to be sacrificed, and yet was resurrected.
Exactly.
So Jesus was what Abraham's faith was in spirit. I mean, that was, and so to me, what this story really did, and marinating on it for that long, is this story really solidifies, concretes, petrifies why he is considered the father of faith. Because you can't walk into that situation having those ideas or that belief system and not, because again, I as confident as you might be,
right, and it also kind of establishes that this is the lineage, this is the line that Christ will come through, right? So it was almost like this had to be the beginning of it, just so it would solidify the story in the end, right? Like it had to be this kind of faith that started it, so that his crucifixion would hold as much meaning as it does.
The part now there is one reference in here about Isaac questioning. Hey, he's kind of doing an inventory checklist.
Yeah,
like I know how these burnt offerings work.
We've got everything, but
we don't have. We got the wood. I see you probably have this big knife here.
Yeah.
Because a burnt offering, you had to slay the animal and then burn it.
Yeah.
So that was the proper way to do a burnt offering. You didn't just burn it. You didn't just slay it. You had to do both. That was a burnt offering.
Did this bring anything to your mind when you were reading that part of it?
The slaying and burning, or
him when he questions.
No, I mean, I don't know, because what it made me think is because there isn't a whole lot after that, and then at this point, there's Abraham's talking like the boy is bound.
Yeah, and these are the two things, and like I said, it's a quick little run through of all that. But to me, him asking his father, "Oh, you've got everything here, but the lamb," reminded me, or it brought to mind.
Pass the cup.
No, yeah, like he's like, if there's any way you can take this burden from me, make it. You know what I'm saying? That kind of paralleled that. And then when it comes time, when he's bound, it says he bound the lad. No resistance.
That's what I'm saying. There's mention of resistance from Isaac at this point.
Right. It's like once he realized that he was the sacrifice, that this is how it had to go, you don't hear anything about him questioning anymore.
My children would have not just. I mean, I feel like there'd be some resistance of some sort. In all seriousness, there is. You're right. I think that's a fantastic way to parallel that more of that Jesus story of here I am. And again, is there another way we can do this?
Yeah, I see all this stuff. And he's talking to his father, right? Just like Christ was talking to his father in the garden.
Amazing.
Yeah. And the fact that he's got the wood on his back, right? Isaac is the one toting the bundle of wood, like the cross that Christ would have bore. The parallels are unique and inspiring, really.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and then it gets to this point where, again, it's going to happen, right? And so Abraham's ready to go through with it, and then at that moment, the angel of the Lord steps in and says, "Ho, ho, ho!
Yeah,
we're all good."
And this angel of the Lord is the same angel of the Lord that was in the burning bush for Moses. This is the same language is used in both locations. So to me, we've talked about this. Every time that is referenced, to me, that is Christ showing up before he's Jesus, right? This is that part of the Trinity having intercession. And I also found it interesting that angel, the translation for angel is actually messenger.
Yes.
Right. It really, angel, we picture a person with wings and all that kind of stuff, but angel actually means messenger. And if this is, the part of the Trinity that is Christ, when it's mentioned as the angel of the Lord, then he was the one that brought the ultimate message, right? He was, he is the message.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to get lost on this, but Yeah, this what we thought was angels, it's not wings. Well, there are wings, but there's a lot of eyes apparently.
I've seen some interesting things recently about people using AI to build a model of the angels as they're described in the Bible.
They're frightening.
Oh yeah.
Which there's, and I've seen these too, by the way. And so it's very interesting that what is the thing that all the angels say, like immediately to humans? Fear not.
Yeah.
Fear not. Because I'm pretty sure they're like, oh my gosh, what is this thing?
Yeah.
That's and I don't blame them. So the thing I was talking about at the beginning of this, I'm gonna go to I'm gonna read this because
I'm interested in your Job reference
because I mean ultimately, so after all this happens and the lamb's provided and don't hurt the boy, and then they go down, and then there's this reconfirmation since I've seen what you've done. Again, it's he was already given this promise, but it's almost this revalidation of, boy, you did good, and I'm going to tell you, you are going to be blessed. The nations of the world are going to be blessed. And so when I think about that, it got me to thinking too about a couple of things. Is we get caught up on the miracle or the blessing and the promise, because Isaac is that. He's the fulfilled promise. You no longer have to wait for it anymore.
Right.
Not 25 years. No, we're not. Hey, I got a plan. Instead of waiting on this thing, why don't you just take my servant and have a kid that way? This is the real promise, and I feel like a lot of people, whether it's again, and I'm not trying to make a list of whatever it is, but I do feel like there's times when we've achieved these things, whether it's if you've ever and I can't imagine you've had your dream job just taken away from you, grief of losing someone. There are things that are just hard to wrap your mind around of why God would give you this amazing thing and then have it taken away. And so in this case, that's what God was basically asking, like, hey, I've shown you this amazing promise. Like first off, I told you about it, and then I gave it to you, and then I asked you to give it up.
Mm-hmm.
And most of us, I feel, are like, no, I'm good, man. No. Why would that? Doesn't even make no sense. This can't be God, because God would not have said, here, I promise you this, and then give it to you, and then take it away. But what's interesting is, to me, and again, I don't know. This is sort of my pondering on this is, and I think about Job, because that story is about, if you have so many things taken from you, will you still love God? If God asked you to sacrifice this, are you willing to give it up because He asked you to, because it shows that it's God first? And this is ultimately one of the biggest tests that all Christians will have to ask. Because is there something in this world that you value above Him? So, and so I think a lot of times they say is Job becomes this reference point of, because this guy had so much.
I mean, he basically had, the devil was turned loose on him.
Yes.
He had no. It was just like, and God was saying, test him.
And because God gets, and then when you have a sovereign Lord, it's probably not a good idea to say, I bet you I can get, because obviously said, no, that's the one guy I'm pretty sure I don't have to worry about. And look, Job lost all of his kids. This was a fruitful guy who, and I mean, lost them at once. This was a boom, and it was all taken away. And so I want to read this part of it. And this is from Job chapter 1, verse 20. And so if you scroll down to this now, and again, this was your sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house. This is before that. And suddenly a great wind came across the wilderness and struck the four corners of the house, and it fell on the young people, and they're all dead. So all of his children just boom, taken away. So now go to 20, where it says, Then Job arose, tore his robe, and shaved his head, and he fell to the ground and worshiped. And he said, Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked shall I return there. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. In all this, Job did not sin nor charge God with wrong. So, if Abraham's the father of faith, Job is the father of
obedience,
steadfast. Just, I mean, because again, if anything feels like a moment where, and because I feel, and if you didn't know the story, as he's saying he tore his robe and he shaved his head, you're waiting for and then he screamed at the Lord as all his lungs. And he's like, why? Because I feel like that's our reaction. That would be my reaction.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you that I'm going to be Job, and I hope to be.
Yep.
And ultimately, I feel like my love will bring me to that. But I can't say that before that I wouldn't, having in his situation, again, I'm to make this comparison. And so really it goes back to what was really beautiful about Abraham was he went through all of that to get Isaac, and he loved Isaac. But Isaac was not going to get in the way of his relationship with God. And I know it's one of the hard, because trust me, it took me a long time to get to this point too, because I really weighed a lot of my earthly relationships above my relationship with God. And I think a lot of times and look, if you're one of the humans in my life, I hope you don't think this in fact this does not lessen my relationship with you. This actually strengthens my relationship with you. By loving him first, I feel like you're able to love people better.
That is, I've heard several pastors make that exact statement.
Yeah,
by loving God best or most, I can love you better.
Yeah, and so kind of as I said, I in Job's situation there, that's kind of to me circles back to Abraham of listen, I don't understand, because I'll go back to and again, his ways are higher than my ways. His understanding, there are things that happen, and sometimes, and this is one of those things where, because people think if there's a God, it means everything should be perfect, but this is you being, no, not in this world, not in this world, and so this is one of these times where people have a hard time with.
You hear people say that. Yeah. People say it all the time, like, why does bad things happen to good people? And the answer is that we bring that on ourselves. We brought sin into the world.
We did.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that something you did personally is what happened to. It just means
you're
we've
living
participated
in a sinful world,
in a rebellion against God, and this has allowed bad things to happen into our world. And what we have to do is trust that in this sovereign Lord, in our sovereign Lord, that if we stay faithful to Him, that in the end, when heaven comes down to us, all of these things are going to be made right. All of the wrongs will be right.
Yep.
And as I said, that's the hardest part, because again, people want it now. I want heaven now, but more importantly, I want it the way I want it now.
Yeah.
So,
I heard a great. I was watching a video of some women having a Bible study, and one of the women picked up her Bible and she was holding the first 3 chapters of Genesis, which is hardly anything. And she said, "This is what God created, and this is what we ruined." And she said, "The rest of this book is Him trying to create a way for us to get back to this."
It's great.
It's great. That's what this is. This is the plan to get back to that original Garden of Eden where everything was perfect.
That's how messed up the butterfly effect of sin is.
Yes.
Has been this. You want to know what's wrong in the world? Because of us and 2,000 years of marinating in this mess. So I do want to do this because I'm looking at the time.
Well, I've got one more reference that I thought was very interesting.
No, this has been great.
When he finally says, "Don't hurt the boy," he says, "By myself I have sworn." Now we did the covenant in the last episode where God was the one, he put Abraham in a sleep, and God was the one that walked between the pieces of the carcass.
Yeah.
He was the one that said, I'm going to be the one that maintains this covenant. And he says, by myself. And what I think is funny about this is how you hear people say, I'm going to do this by God.
Yeah.
By God, I'm going to make this happen. And he says, by myself. He was basically saying, by God, this is going to happen. And I just thought it was a flex moment. I kind of felt like he was like, by myself.
That's good. That is good. But I was looking at the time, and so I know we're not going to be able to go too much further, but we didn't finish chapter 22, so I feel like we should at least. And there's not a whole lot.
It's not much.
So what happened is, so after this, and I'll go back and read 19 real quick. Abraham returned to his young men. They rose and went together to Beersheba, and Abraham dwelt in Beersheba, and that's where he basically, I would say that's where he probably grew old. So go into 20. Now it came to pass after these things that it was told Abraham, saying, Indeed, Milcah has borne children to your brother Nahor. Huz, his firstborn, Buz, his brother, Kemuel, the father of Aram, Chesid, Hazo, Pildash, Jidlaph, and Bethuel. And Bethuel begot Rebekah. These 8 Milcah bore to Nahor, Abraham's brother, his concubine, whose name was Remuah, also bore Taba, Gam, and Tahash, and Makah. So this is more of this genealogy that will explains the nations. And so
it's setting up the one we need to concentrate here is Rebecca. We need to remember that name.
Let's go back to that. Yes, yeah. Rebecca is a very important part of this as we go forward. So, first off, I'm just glad to be back.
Yes.
First and again, to have that story be the starting point is fantastic, because as I said, I think a lot of people don't make the comparison to the Jesus part of this about the and how it has. I'm not saying that it's not uncommon and people haven't, but again, it's when you dig deeper, I think you see that. Now, as I said, I think it is great to ask yourself internally the questions about sacrifice and those kind of things. And I think the answer most of the time is, I'm not willing to sacrifice much. I can tell you that, because I think that's really much of it. And that's a bad attitude to have. I'm not saying that's the right thing, but I think when you do these checks, I think that's when it's kind of why we say we can't measure up to these Bible people. But go back to, again, if you haven't listened to more of these, if this is your first podcast, go back and listen. Abraham failed miserably about a lot of things, but man, faith was his.
By this time, he has seen so much. Yes. God has answered so much for him. His faith had to be unbelievable. Yeah. I mean, he didn't question anything that was asked of him at this point.
Yeah. So, and as I said, great story, and especially the parallel as we saw. And to me, the fact that the geographic location of this particular event and the event of Jesus going to the cross, again.
And I actually made a list.
Because I'm leaning towards because I don't believe in coincidence.
Oh, no.
I believe in the sovereign Lord. So I feel like it's, look, there's a reason why all of that. And again, I'm not saying I'm convinced it was the exact mountain in the exact spot, or I'm not trying to, because I don't have that empirical data. But I'm saying hard for me to, I'm not going to cancel it out. Yep. And I'm saying the fact that it's even if it's in the same area, I think he's trying to knock on the door a little bit there.
So I made a list of the top 5, and I'll just run through them real quick. We've got the place. We've got the father offering the son. Isaac bearing the wood. No, it was a willing sacrifice at the end. Isaac didn't resist.
Yes.
And God provided another sacrifice for the redemption.
And, again, and wow. I mean, and the promise
Oh, yeah.
The promise maintained, the promise stayed, which was exactly what God had said from the beginning.
By myself, I am going to make this
I am
covenant.
going to make this covenant. And when you think about it, that's really what Jesus did. He didn't ask you to do anything except believe.
Believe, yep.
That's it. That's it.
That's it.
I know it's a hard thing to do. Believe. Trust me.
Yeah.
It's hard. But again, glad to be back at it and excited.
They probably didn't believe we'd be back.
No, I'm willing to bet many people said that's it.
Yeah.
They did that. They got real kind of fiery about it, and then they were like, it's Genesis.
And they left us on a cliffhanger with this Isaac thing coming up.
No, and look, I think we did it some justice. Let's do before we head out of here though, a prayer. We can't take our hats off though because we have headsets on. So just symbolically, we have the hats off. Yep. But Heavenly Father, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity today to discuss the Word and to again discover this amazing parallel between Abraham's story of Isaac and that sacrifice and the ultimate sacrifice in which you gave your son so that we would not perish but live everlasting. And so we thank you, God. We thank you for this opportunity, and we thank you for all things in Jesus' name. Amen. So
Amen.
Episode 49 and I believe 50 coming up soon. Have a great one. We'll see you next time. Jesus James and Mark.